Hey guys, how's it going? Back with another patch rundown video. Today we're going to be talking about 14.12. If you guys enjoy the patch rundowns, let me know. If you enjoy the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. I do appreciate it a lot. Let's get straight into it. This patch is a little bit interesting. There are some support changes that are kind of curious and bot lane changes, so we'll look into those. The first thing that we do have to talk about though that has been going off over the past week and so is the Hall of Legends for Faker. This is a very interesting thing. I initially thought it was really cool. Now I'm a little It's very expensive. It's a $500 skin if you guys didn't know. I think it's cool. I don't know if I'll get it. I just hope I get it for free through Riot accounts and stuff like that. I don't think I play Ari enough to warrant buying it. I think that it's a really cool concept for what they're doing, and I think it's nice to like immortalize players who have had such like amazing careers and stuff like that, but doing it during their career is kind of weird. I think the skin is very sick to begin with. I do think there's a little pay to lose on the E though. Like the charm looks very dodgeable. I don't really have too much of an opinion. I've never really like commented on it or anything like that. But if you guys are gonna get it, enjoy. I think if you get it in NA, you're gonna get super memed. If you get it in other regions, you'll be like, holy shit, so cool. So that's kind of just my take on that. But let's talk about the actual changes in the patch notes, what you guys came for. First up, we have Aatrox. Aatrox is getting a bit of a buff. It is getting more armor growth and less health regen, but it is also getting more healing on the E because of bonus health. And it's no longer decreased. Oh wait, no longer increased? Hold on. Never mind, it's nerfed. I'm trolling. Anyway, but it's buffed in the World Ender. So overall, his healing's just gonna go insane, which is kind of cool. I've been seeing people building the item that like sucks people, the nearby armor, and like healing massive amounts with that. So we'll be seeing if that's OP. They are nerfing Akali, which is reasonable. The champ's kind of annoying in solo queue, but it's very dead in pro play, so very interesting that they're nerfing it. Just annoying to play against in solo queue. Akshan is a very similar champion for that. Also passive damage decreased, E damage decreased. They're just nerfing like solo queue champions a lot in this patch. Ashe is one of the highest win rate AD carries right now after all the crit changes, so they are nerfing the passive, like when you attack somebody, the extra crit damage that you get, instead of critting, it's like converted into bonus damage, so they're nerfing that by 5%. This does affect support Ashe and stuff like that a little bit as well, but mostly for AD carry Ashe. Blitzcrank is getting a base health nerf, but they're giving back the duration on the passive. This is just like an overall change. It's not really a nerf or a buff in my opinion. It does kind of suck, but like getting the passive barrier feels really nice, so not really much changing with Blitzcrank. You're still Blitzcrank. It kind of feels bad to nerf the HP because there's certain champions where like if you hook them, you're losing the fight anyway, and are just gonna lose them harder. I think it adds just like maybe a little bit more skill to Blitzcrank if anything, but not really the biggest change. One of the bigger changes is Corki, and they're just shifting his damage into Q more rather than into E, and then reducing his base damage but adding attack speed growth. I think this will probably change a little bit how you build Corki, and maybe Max, but probably not. I think maybe like Triforce will be a little bit more popular. It's already popped up a bit in Korea, building Triforce on this patch, so maybe on next patch building Triforce will be a little bit better rather than the lethality build. Ezreal, they are finally buffing. Ezreal has had a hard time since the crit changes coming on 14.10 in the mid-season update. So they're giving him flat 80 growth as well as 80 scaling on his Q as well as base ult damage. It's actually a pretty decent sized buff, especially since he did get a little bit from PTA getting buffed earlier. I'm kind of interested to see if this champion will come back into meta just because of these buffs actually being quite decent in terms of what he's getting in terms of his damage. Karma is getting another buff. Ever since they tried to shift Karma out of playing mid lane with Maligma coming into the game, she became a little bit too strong, so they tried to nerf her out of playing mid lane into the support role, and they just keep buffing her shielding. I'm actually very curious now if Karma's going to be one of the better late game scaling enchanters while having an amazing early game because of all the buffs that are happening to her E. I'm gonna be probably spamming this champion next patch. I think it might be a little bit of an over buff. But I'm not entirely sure. I want to see. They are buffing like the E max by a lot, so you probably go 3 points skew into E. The movement duration going up by 5 seconds is also just overall massive. So do keep a lookout for this when you are playing in solo queue. I think it might be one of the better supports on the next patch, but I'm gonna have to give it a go and see. I've always hated Karma because it's just an early game champion that doesn't scale that well, but if you have a good early game and great scaling with the E, then maybe it'll fix things. They are adding less bonus damage to monsters for Master Yi, so his clear speed will be worse and he'll be an overall weaker jungle, and changing how his meditate works. Nefiri is getting a small buff, which is interesting because Nefiri isn't a bad champion per se. It actually has a very high win rate. If I remember correctly, The last time I saw a Fury winner was like 54% or 53%. And the reason that is just because the only people who play it are one tricks. And I think the problem with the Fury is like the play rate is so low that they want to buff to make it like more people want to play the champion, but the champion isn't that weak. So if you are a Fury enjoyer, I'm sure this is great for you. It's just a free buff for a champion that isn't really that bad. Nyla is getting a small buff, which is kind of massive because this does help a lot of what Nyla is bad at in early game, but it doesn't help what she's bad at in mid-late game. The problem with Nyla is she's just very hard to team fight and push your advantages and stuff like that. But with this, you'll be able to get a bigger lead. Just because you will be able to play lane a lot easier with better armor growth and better health regeneration. Rek'Sai is a little bit too strong right now. It is sitting at like a 54% win rate in solo queue, 53%. So they are nerfing the bonus attack speed on Q and then taking some burrow undamage out as well. This is going to nerf the overall clear speed a lot of Rek'Sai. And whenever you nerf like small abilities for jungle, it affects it a lot because their clear speed is what makes them strong within the meta in a way where it's like if you're farming less camps, you're just going to overall have less gold, whereas if you're playing like a laning champion, getting 10 damage on your Q doesn't matter as much as it for jungle because you're using your Q less. It's less impactful for the champion. So Rek'Sai just gets overall less gold and XP because of these nerfs rather than like if you're nerfing like I don't know Cassandra Q, which doesn't really matter as much, right? They're nerfing Skarner. Again, it got super overbuffed and it got readjusted. So they're taking off a little bit of base health and adding it into health growth. This is 40 base health and +3 on this. So it'll like basically never even out. Like it gets better at like level 13 or 14, just early game's way worse. And then they're changing how the passive damage works. So it's 5 to 11 rather than 7 to 10. I guess late game Skarner is better. This champion at level 18, it's a buff, but getting there, it's like, it's so irrelevant. Like the early game changes matter so much more than the late game like buff or whatever, right? They are changing talent attack speed to scale with Q to scale with attack speed. Sad. I don't like playing versus Talon. Blows. They're nerfing jungle. Sounds great. Outgoing damage slightly buffed. Is what it is. Tryndamere, they are nerfing, sorry. Tryndamere got a little bit too strong with the crit changes. They changed the passive to like 0 to 50% crit, which is like ridiculous. So they are nerfing the Q bonus AD that you get, as well as the E spin damage by a little bit. ADTF has been a dominant force in pro play ever since it got the nerf, so they're trying to take that a little bit back. They're nerfing the flat AD, as well as the AP scaling on Q, and the mana cost on W. And how much mana you actually get back is getting increased. So they want you to use blue card more in lane, which is chill, I guess. I mean, kind of sucks for APTF to always just get these like hits from ADTF, but champion is still probably going to be somewhat playable, I'd imagine. This is just the most blatant like Riot buffs champions based on skins that I've ever seen in my life. Q2 now works on towers. Arcane trailer just dropped. Victor quality of life buff to celebrate. Like, come on, at least be a little bit more discreet about it. You're like, oh man, Victor just hasn't been played enough, and we just really feel like we need to make him have a little bit more fun to his kit. They are nerfing or buffing Vladimir W, which is honestly a little bit annoying. I hate playing versus Vladimir, as well as the overall damage is getting a very slight buff by 5% bonus health, but you're not really building that much health anyway. And they're also nerfing the overall health cost of it. Probably feels quite good for Vladimir players. I don't like seeing this champion buff just because it's so annoying when it does get ahead. And I've always had a hard time playing versus it. They are buffing Yone, which is nice because Yone and Yasuo have both had a hard time since the crit changes and lethal tempo being removed. They're giving him 3 armor in the early game, which just helps the early laning and stuff like that. Quite a nice buff when you're playing versus melee champions, when you're playing versus mid champions. Quite not a buff. They are buffing Yuumi, which is always fun to see a Yuumi buff. Not really. I think buffing Yuumi just adds some depression to my life because the champion becoming slightly more and more meta playable is just sad to play and support and play verse. I don't like the current version of Yuumi, and I've been pretty vocal about this, where the champion is like so unskill dependent now compared to the earlier versions, where you can't really do too much. Like getting off of your champion is like 90% of the time a grief, whereas before like added some like value of like skill of like knowing when to get off and stuff like that. And there are more situations where getting off was good, but now I feel like it's like not very skill expression in the champion, so it kind of sucks. She was sitting at like a 50% win rate, I think, flat. The buff probably gonna put her up a little bit more. We'll see. The nice thing about this is you don't actually have to max E anymore. You can put more points into Q, but her Q max wasn't strong in anyway, so it's like 10's like it's all rank cool, I guess. A little bit more healing on the Earl. I'm sure it will feel nice, but not a buff that I really agree with or like enjoy. I think there's a lot of buffs that I'm just like gonna be sad about in this patch note, but it's fine. It doesn't matter too much. They're changing the build path for Lord Dominic's to include a Noon Quiver, so you're not just sitting on a 950 gold and just shit components. Like, this will feel a little bit better in terms of how you actually build the item. They're changing Noon Quiver to be 5 less 80, sucks for 80 carries, lol. They're changing the build path of Scout Screenshot to have double dagger, which does make a lot of sense in the early game, especially considering this, you're basically paying 200 gold now just for the passive, which is cool. I haven't experimented with this item enough yet. I'm kind of curious how good it feels on Senna in early game, so I want to try a video about that, but we just haven't had the time. There's changing recipe, that's fine. Void Staff getting buffed, which is actually quite interesting. It is overshadowed by Crypt Bloom because of the healing and stuff like that, but it giving such a high flat amount of AP in the early game makes me think that building Void Staff second on mid lane mages might actually not be that bad. This is something that Bjergsen used to do like a lot in like season 7, season 8, I want to say, where he would just build Void Staff second on every mage because everyone's going to buy magic resist at some point. And the item was like pretty good stat efficiency wise to begin with. So I think it might build back into that, but we'll see. There are so many good mage items right now in the game, Leandri's Blackfire Torch and whatnot. So maybe this will become a thing where people are building it a little bit more often. I mean, I still think Crypt Bloom is still an amazing item, so I don't think it's going to be like super like one or the other. They are buffing Shireldia's Grudge by 5%, which feels good considering how bad the item felt after the changes. This is nice for champions like Jace. This is nice for, honestly, Jace is like, or just overall assassins and stuff like that, because they are buying lethality. This is one of the bigger changes to the patch that I find very interesting is the first strike change. They're changing it from flat 15 gold to 10 gold and down 1% damage amp. They literally made this buff like 2 patches ago, which is kind of hilarious that they're taking it back. Like I said, I'm pretty sure in the video that they changed the first strike, I said that they're bipolar about this and they will always just add 1% or lose 1% on first strike, and they'll just never be able to decide, which is kind of hilarious that they're doing it like 2 patches later to me. If you guys didn't know, people were taking this a lot on support over the past couple of patches. It was kind of strong on certain supports and depending on the matchups and stuff like that. I really enjoyed the hype around it because of how fast you got gold and stuff like that. I think now that it's probably dead unless it's like taken in really, really good situations on certain champions. But losing the 5 gold on proc, it feels really shit for support. So probably going to be a little bit dead on that side. So you have a few hours to abuse it if you still wanted to. Recommended runes, don't really care about this. System changes, don't care about this. Oh my God. I think that is kind of it. If you guys do want to see me spend $500 on an Ahri skin, let me know and we will play Ahri support if you guys really want to see it. If not, I hope to see you guys in the next video where we will probably be playing Ivern is probably going to be the next video. So stay tuned for that. If you guys have anything else you guys want to play, let me know, as I don't have anything in the backlog anymore because there is a new patch. There are some things that I do want to try out. I do want to try out Halo Blades, or no, Bloodsong on melee supports again, and Warmogs on melee supports, because those are popping up quite often. So if you guys want to see videos on that, make sure to subscribe. If not, subscribe anyway, and like and comment because it helps the algorithm, and I appreciate it a lot. If you made it this far in the video, have a nice day. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.